This is a Frank podcast.
This Warriors Live Podcast 2026, episode 12, I think. Will and Fonzie here with you for another Teamless Tuesday. Just the two of us. Brad is in the eye of a storm. He's in Fiji, battening down the hatches with a cyclone bearing down on him on his way home. Jimmy, who's done a great job, the rookie, filling in for a couple of weeks. He just started a new job today, so he's out. And Keith is a late withdrawal after a couple of great appearances, something to do with the German financial year coming to an end, I'm sure. But yeah, but old school, you and I, Fonz, just the two of us, mate.
How are you, mate? Yeah, good to be here. I reckon all those boys are just bailing after a couple of losses. Pretty standard.
Yeah, weak, pea-hearted.
Standard Wilds fans. Yeah,
classic. Just before we get into that second straight loss, brought to you by Kingz Container Crew, of course. And for your container packing and unpacking solutions, go to your devanning specialist, Kingz Container Crew. You know where to go, kingscontainercrew.com. And hit the Work With Us tab to get a gig with those guys. Also, our 2026 newcomers on the sponsor bandwagon, PlaceMakers. Your know-how can-do people, experts in the trade since 1981, and New Zealand's best trade range. I know that Brad is gagging to get home and get into PlaceMakers, see what new stuff they've got in there. Thanks to PlaceMakers and Kingz. Fonz. 2 straight losses. Things are looking a little bit sour, I guess, compared to where we were a fortnight ago. But 3-2, still 5th on the ladder, and it's a topsy-turvy comp. And the sky's not quite falling yet, would be my summary after a couple of days to think about it.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a long season, and we're early days, and we got 3 wins in the bank. So yeah, what you're saying is right, but. Oh man, that was ugly. That was ugly, wasn't it? And confusing. Just confusing.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Similar, you sort of said in the live chat on Substack that it was, a bit of a rinse and repeat from last week. Hot start, and then then just sort of fell apart, probably more dramatically against the team that was better equipped in the Sharks. 36-22. I thought it could have been a lot worse on the scoreboard, to be honest, when they 4 tries in 20 minutes, and it was looking like it was really going to unravel. But 2 tries apiece in the second half. Some very good cover defense and scramble probably prevented the scoreline from blowing out. But couldn't really disguise the fact that it was a pretty convincing defeat. What were your sort of main takeaways?
Well, look, I mean, I put my hand up that I was watching this at a family Easter lunch, so I was, a bit distracted, and I haven't had time to do a rewatch because we were down the coast, got back last night and back at work today. But so I'm sort of keen to watch it again if I can stomach it. But look, it felt like the way it went wrong, the same way things went wrong against the Tigers, just on steroids. So the forwards didn't lay the platform. We seemed to, passes weren't sticking. We seemed to just be very clunky, lack cohesion on the edges. Our defense on the edges was just abysmal. Like we got to talk about that right edge, right? Because it was just horrific. And it was it's just amazing how the team has changed so much from weeks 1 to 3, because the thing that was most sort of prominent about weeks 1 to 3 was that we weren't playing fancy footy at all, right? But we were running hard, competing at the ruck and winning most rucks, very cohesive. Passes were sticking. We weren't trying to do anything fancy. And everything just looked simple, in sync, effective. And, fundamentally, we were winning the play the ball. And that's sort of, we should dig into that a little bit, because I'm not sure we lost to play the ball here, but something has changed, and it's not a change in one place. Like, it's not just the right edge defense has gone to shit. Everything's gone off, a little bit is my sense. And so we need to talk about what that is, because it could be some player management. It could be, morale. It could be a few different things. So we should talk about that.
Before we get into it further, I had a somewhat compromised watch, I guess. I went to the watch party at One New Zealand Stadium, Te Kaha in Christchurch. They had a test event to make sure everything's working smoothly before they have proper games and everything there. So they opened up one end of the ground. It was great to check out the stadium. Geez, it is awesome. Here's my little collage of pics from the day.
Mad.
Yeah, it's an awesome stadium. It's going to be so good to go to some footy there. So I'm in probably the worst seat in the house, back row in the and the view of the ground's sensational. So it's going to be awesome. Feels very compact, but 30,000 in there. The atmosphere under the roof is going to be awesome. I was watching in that on the big screen, which wasn't too bad, but it is a wee way away. I was right next to a gigantic screen, same size screen, but couldn't quite see it from my vantage point. But certainly could see enough of the game to see our right edge get absolutely torn to shreds. If anyone
can I ask you about that? So that's 30,000 seats, is it?
Yes, I think so, unless the capacity is less there might be some temporary seating arrangement for bigger events. But it's down you can see there, that sort of hospitality / stage area for concerts. But so as far as I know, capacity 30,000. It's going to be awesome.
And fully roofed? Does that roof go the full?
Yeah,
wow.
Fully covered. Concourse right around sort of the interior, like a Suncorp was probably the only one that I've been to that's similar like that. But bars and eateries galore. It's going to be outstanding. Can't wait for that Cowboys game in June. And everyone there was loving it. The other standout thing was like every second person had some sort of Waz kit on. It was awesome. It actually felt, you could feel that sort of Warriors supporter energy, even though it was only 3,000 people, and kind of a test event to go and be a bit of a nosy Parker at the new stadium. But it definitely felt like it was like a Warriors event, not just a bunch of locals coming to have a wee look. So well done to One New Zealand Stadium, venues Otatahi, and I'm sure it's going to be a jewel in the crown for the city. Great stuff.
Well, looking at that, it looks like Bankwest Paris Stadium, but that stadium looks better. It just looks similar sort of steepness, but the roof and everything else there looks really good. They've got to get an NRL team in there. To me, that's a no-brainer. It's got to happen. It's a shame.
Yeah. I think when it comes time to select a 20th team, that stadium will be a nice little carrot for Volandis and co, but we'll see what will happen there. Getting back to the game, probably the most glaring stat was the average set distance, and did feel like this. Sharks 44.84. That's pretty high up there as far as your average set distance goes, and about 9 meters on average further than the Warriors. Everything else was reasonably even as far as possession goes and that sort of thing, errors, completions, and then the line breaks really piled up, 9 line breaks to 3, and it certainly felt like we were getting hammered in that department. They were just pouring through, particularly on our right edge. So what do we do?
Well, let's dig into that a little bit. So as you pointed out, we lost average set and we lost meters per carry by a long way. So we had 1,650 meters of 191 carries, and they had 1,830 meters of 175 carries, right? Yep. But then you look at the set restarts and penalties. So it was 2-2 on ruck infringements and 10-1 our way, as in like they conceded 10 penalties, we conceded 1. So that tells me overall we didn't bring the ref into this game enough.
No, right? We're also 4-2 ahead inside the 10-meter set restarts too. So overall 6-4 advantage for set restarts and 10-1 for penalties, which is absolute landslide. Amazing that it didn't translate at all.
So that's telling me we didn't use the ref properly this week. Like we needed to put some more pressure on the ref and make him blow the whistle on penalties or ruck infringements, however it was, because if you are on the right side of the penalty stat and ruck infringements pretty parity, meanwhile you're just conceding significantly more meters per set and significantly more meters per carry, you're getting up too early, right? And so I think we might have misjudged that a little bit, and so I don't know why that is, but it feels like that's a thing. Now, it's not just a question of judgment. There's also like, can you actually get to the point in the wrestle where you can hold down without it being a complete piss take? You know what I mean? Like, fine line, yeah. But that tells me we're losing the middle in a way we were not losing the middle in the first few weeks, and we weren't controlling the ruck like we were. So there's a question about why is that, and then there's plenty other questions too. So yeah, and let's start with this question from Axel. Is it an energy thing? It can't be an energy thing in round 4 or 5, mate. That's too early, I think. You can hit a wall of energy. Like when you come out of the blocks like we did and so on, you definitely can hit a wall of energy at a certain point, but this is too early. Like round 6, round 10, something like that. Yeah, I could buy that, but no, it's not. It's not just over adrenalizing after 3.5, 4 weeks. It's something else. Yeah, and there's a few different theories for what that is.
That right edge has obviously come under a lot of scrutiny, Fonz, from those highlights in particular, the try highlights. Any solutions, any reasons why it's getting ripped to shreds so blatantly?
Well, I mean, we sort of got to go from that into the difficult conversation, right? Which is, if you do you agree that systemically there's something off with this team in the last week and a half?
Yeah, I mean, well, certainly defensively, and it is, that right side. Well, probably both sides, but the right's been targeted and probably leaked more line breaks. But yeah, it just seemed particularly shambolic. We're no strangers to our edges being under the pump over the last sort of couple of years. But that first half against Cronulla, it honestly looked like they barely knew each other at times, and they probably should have put more points on to be fair. But it's one of those ones where does it start right in the middle of the field with and it's just a domino effect out wide, or is the chance at centre experiment not really working? I don't think Dallin could really be any blame placed on him, as people are usually quite keen to do. So yeah, where does it start? What is the cause of it?
Well, if you agree it's across the park, I mean, we're dropping balls, we're not winning the ruck, we're leaking points in defence, all of those things, then you do have to start thinking about, is there some factor here that's affecting the whole team, right? Might not be. We're just speculating here, but you got to think about that now. So let's think about what's happened in the last 2 weeks that might affect the whole team. So first up, we've had Roger, Barney has been kicking around for a while, so maybe not a good one, and Nukore confirmed they're leaving end of the year. Yep. Then we've had pre-season starting fullback demoted from fullback for Tane. We've had pre-season started 7 or being injured, demoted to 6 for which is Metcalf, for Tanner Boyd. We've had pre-season starting 6 in Chanel, demoted out of the whole squad, really, to accommodate the others. And so suddenly you've got 1, 2, 3, how many? We've got 7 players there, right, whose headspace has had a knock in the last 3 weeks, right? So the 7 has, and Boyd should be on a high because he's got the 7, but I don't know if the dynamic is actually making him happy to be in the 7, right? Or whether if he's got a 6, he's not happy. So you've got the 7, the 6, the right centre, the fullback, who else we got? Then we've got Nukore, we've got Barney, and we've got Rog, all who have had a bit going, and then Pompey, who's had a baby, right? So you've got pretty much half the 17 whose head's been knocked around in the last couple of weeks. Okay, so that's enough to infect the whole squad. It can infect the whole squad at training. It can affect the whole squad socially. It can affect the whole squad in morale and all those things. So I think there's enough been happening around the squad for us to have a wobble. Yep. And whether the wobble, if that's the reason this is happening, whether the wobble turns into a collapse comes back to, again, whether these blokes are actually in it for the team or themselves, and whether there's leadership in the squad that will pull them together, get their heads back in and go again. But pausing there, I mean, do you buy that sort of off-field stuff as an explanation here, Will, or do you think it's...
I wouldn't have thought so just after the start they had. And, there's a lot of goodwill around Mitch Barnett and Roger, and, everyone's sort of wishing them well in their future endeavours. And we almost talked about it being, setting the stage for it to be a massive positive that would be able to, parlay that into sort of a farewell drive for a title after those first 3 wins. So, but yeah, I mean, it doesn't take much to upset the apple cart, and shaky performance against the Tigers where it all unravelled. Puts some doubts in their head. It seemed like they just carried on from that Tigers performance, disjointed. That halves combination has not fired at all. Boyd drifts in and out of games after dominating the first 3 rounds. Despite, he played with 3 different 5/8s in the first 3 rounds. So it shouldn't have really been too much of a drama, but maybe, just Metcalf's profile and his desire to play number 7 just fed into some psychological doubt. I mean, it's, we got very excited and probably, all the plaudits were justified, but Boyd hasn't exactly strung a season of great footy together. So, it's not like he was a slam dunk long-term halfback. No. And maybe just that, that expectation suddenly, particularly when we were very excited about Metcalf coming back to join him, Barnett back on deck, and thought we had our strongest team in round 4. Suddenly that expectation, which we didn't have in the first 3 rounds, so it does can feed into a performance like that. And I thought the Sharks were really good and took advantage of us. They've got those performances in them. A very speedy, big, powerful back 5, which which they capitalised on. But to answer your question, Fons, I certainly think it could have had an impact. I'm just surprised if it has those off-field diversions.
Well, I mean, if you zero in on the fact that we're not doing as well around the ruck, right, this week, and probably against the Tigers too, I would say. Now the forward pack's essentially the same since round 3. When did Capes get injured? Round 2, wasn't it? So
he missed. He actually pulled out pre-game round 2.
Round 2. So the pack hasn't really changed. Barney came in for a little bit, went back out. So it can't be selection in the pack really. Is it that we're not getting the start from the back 3 that we were getting when it was Chance, Rog and Dal? And, Rog pre-announcement. Is that part of the reason that we're not getting momentum through the sets and winning rucks?
Yeah, maybe. Chance was only there in round 1, though. He switched to 5/8 and 10 minutes into round 2. And, Tane obviously played pretty much all of that round 2 and 3. But, I guess when other things aren't firing and you're getting sort of outplayed by the opposition pack, then that back 3 factor does come into it. And Tane did probably struggle physically on Sunday. No fault of his own. He's a gutsy competitor, but he doesn't have that same impact that we get from Chance as a ball runner. Roger has been a bit down, I think, the last couple of weeks since that announcement, as you were sort of mentioning. He's had a tough couple of weeks with his hands. Meter's a bit down. Dallin I thought was much better in that department on Sunday. Probably his best game of the year, along with a hat trick. So, yeah, I don't know. It just seemed very flat and on the back foot on both sides of the ball, really.
Yeah, and I mean Metcalf's obviously injured now, so we don't have to have the debate of do you persist with him, and if so, for how long? Because we're going to get CHT back this week.
Can we touch on it briefly, though? That there's a lot of talk, we should have brought him back through New South Wales Cup. I think that would have been quite difficult to do.
I agree.
For, our sort of marquee, air quotes, half that has been very bullish about wanting this to be his team and, re-signed on a big contract. He's the only one of the three halves that have played that has re-signed beyond this year. So it would have been quite difficult for Webster, I think, to bring him back through New South Wales Cup. And I do feel slightly sorry for Metcalf. He hasn't been great, but has he been, that bad that it's been a contributing factor to the losses? I'm not quite so sure about that. I think it's disrupted the team as a whole, maybe a little piece of it, as well as all those other factors that you were talking about, Fons. But yeah, feel a little sorry for Metcalf coming back from an ACL, trying to regain his rhythm, and it's just coincided with the team that's sort of dipped a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. No use bringing him back through Cup. You don't put your marquee half back through Cup. I said before, and we've talked on here, he should have done probably 30, 40 minutes in that first game.
Yeah.
And bleed him in that way. Give Chanel, some time sharing with Metcalf for a couple of weeks till he got his legs back and so on. I think he's been a spot in defence. I think that's clear.
Yeah.
So that's been an issue on our left edge. And then meantime, Chance on the right edge has been all at sea. And I've got to think his head's not in that. Like I appreciate he hasn't played much, if any, first grade at centre, but he's played for the Kiwis at centre and he was fine, right? So, and I understand there's better players inside and outside him at Kiwis, but you've got to think his head's not in the centre role. And so,
yeah, it does seem that way.
And so you've got a guy who doesn't really want to play centre, playing right centre. Then you've got a guy who's, not really match fit, seems to have lost a bit of weight, bit gun shy on the left edge, and all of a sudden we're leaky all over the place and we're, having to deal with that. So there's that. On the other hand, I think Boyd's got worse since Metcalf came back. And partly that's because we're not winning the ruck, so you've got to factor that in. But I do just think those two don't click, and Metcalf gave an interview through the week. You probably heard it, Will, I think, where he said he wants the 7 and he wants his hand on the ball, right? So there's he straight out said that. And I think Webby was asked about that in a press conference and said, yeah, well, he's just going to have to do what's right for the team for now. So there's clearly a tension there, which can be healthy, but can also be unhealthy depending on how it's playing out, behind the scenes.
I did want to touch on, so last week, I think you made the very valid point that, the switch with Tane and Chance when they're both available was, seemed to go against what you would assume is the case, that what we've seen over the first 3 rounds wouldn't be enough to alter Andrew Webster's first choice team in, very, very important position. So it was, quite a curious one to drop Ali Leatawa late, and we assumed it was, almost exclusively to do with Leatawa rather than, anything to do with Tane, except Tane's, good form in rounds 2 and 3. But applying that same principle to the halves situation, obviously, if everyone was fit at the start of the season, it would have been Chanel and Lou Metcalf in the halves. So, would those first 3 rounds have been enough to change his thoughts on who his best halves combination is, even as well as Boyd did play? And I guess, Chanel had that concussion, which maybe thought they might bring him, on a bit slower than they otherwise might. But yeah, I mean,
I get why you're asking that. I get why you're asking that, but they're 2 different situations, because one's the incumbent, right? So the incumbent fullback who was selected as round 1 fullback, no injury issues, came in and we won 3 in a row, albeit that Tane came in and filled in. So there was nothing wrong with the starting fullback, and I don't think Tane did anything like. So firstly, Tane played a game and a half, call it, game and 3/4 in the first 3 rounds. I don't think that body of work was enough to displace your starting fullback. Whereas Tanner starts at 7, plays 3 games there, plays absolutely out of his skin, like career best form, arguably best 7 in the NRL, and Metcalf meanwhile is coming back undercooked from injury. So I do think it's a different situation. I get what you're saying. Like, if he's decided to overrule who would have had prime position, but for injury in round 1 with Tanner, why wouldn't you do that with Chance? But it's different because Chance was fit for round 1, was picked for round 1. So was Tane. They both did preseason, to a point. And yeah, I think it's a different situation. Like Tanner's was a genuinely exceptional situation where he started round 1 and just played 8 out of 10 games times 3.
Yeah,
Whereas Chance started round 1, played a probably 7 out of 10 game round 1. Tane probably played a 7 out of 10 game round 2, round 3. You know what I mean? It's not quite the same in my head, but I get you. I get you.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. No one would have batted an eyelid if they stuck with the originally named team, because he did name that Chance back at fullback for round 4 before changing it late. Whereas there would have been a bit of a fan base blow up. Not that matters, but if Boyd had been dropped after the first 3 rounds just because Metcalf was suddenly fit. But yeah, it's an interesting one, and obviously, the injury to hamstring injury has kind of taken that out of the equation, but it becomes a very big question again. Say we end our 17 match losing streak against the Storm with Chanel coming straight back in, he was outstanding in round 1. He was as good as Boyd.
Yep, I agree with that.
Yeah, and then Metcalf's out for another couple, so we win those games, and then Metcalf's fit. What do you do? Will it be the play to leave Metcalf out or bring him back off the bench? It's very tricky one when you don't have an obvious higher ceiling for either of the 3. Just before we're only a few minutes away from Teamless Tuesday dropping, which is a pretty interesting one, although the fact that the Warriors are going to contest Adam Pompey's charge and that Chance will probably be fit, I don't think we're going to see a change 1 to 7 except for Chanel coming back in. But Simon Johnson's asked us thoughts on Chance's communication versus Tane's. I've seen that pop up a bit, and we have talked about it previously. I mean, it's impossible to know, I guess, unless you're out there, or unless it's sort of teammates or Andrew Webster telling us. Certainly, you would think, given Chance's experience and body of work, that is, one of his fortes. The Warriors conceded 24 points in the 90 minutes with Chance, and then only 12 with the following 150 minutes with Tane. Although the last 2 weeks the defence has fallen away quite dramatically. Hard to know how much that is to do with the communication you're getting from your fullback, but certainly potentially valid point.
Yeah, it is a potentially valid point because, like you said, this is crucial. Like the fullback is behind the line, calling the numbers, like if depending on where the play the ball is, they're calling, is it a 6-4 split, a 5-5 split, a 7-3 split? They're yelling at the numbers. So I don't have a sense of I know Chance is good at this, right? Because we've been a good defensive team for years with Chance at fullback, right? So I know he's good at that. I don't know whether Tane's as good at it or not. That could be an explanation for things going wrong, but it doesn't feel like it. It doesn't feel like it's numbering so much as reads and even contact and just energy levels. So, yeah.
I do want to give a quick shout out, and I'm still, quite unsure because I think we would need to see more on attack and, ability to break the line, that sort of thing, for me to really be convinced that he's the fullback, even though I've been a big Tane fan. But some of his cover defensive efforts have been superb. He's one of the best in the NRL at it. His poise, we saw he pulled off 2 amazing ones against Newcastle last year, but with Sharks pouring down on him, and he just he keeps his cool. That try saver to bundle, was it Ito into touch?
Yeah,
that was outstanding. And then there's this line break in the second half where he just sort of stood his ground and came up with the tackle. He's obviously very quick, that helps. But there's a few of those sort of situations where Chance got torched towards the end of last year. Obviously that's not enough to for it to swing in Tane's favour to be the long-term fullback. But I'm impressed with his ability in that area. And looks like we get another run this week with our centre Trout. But here we go. The lineup is out, so we will check it out.
Yep, just having a look now. But just while you're doing that, there's nothing wrong with Tane. All right, it's not. So he's a bad player. He's got some strengths.
I've shared the wrong one, Fonz.
Perfect.
Too many tabs open. What have we got? Here we go.
Just say it. Here we go.
So Unfamiliar, 9:30 New Zealand time, Saturday night slot. Saturday night time slot. And as expected, Tane to a pick at fullback, Dallin and Roger on the wings, Chance and Pompey, pending that downgrade attempt, are named in the centres. Chanel Harris-Davida comes back in at number 6 with Tanner Boyd. The forward pack looks unchanged: Fisher Harris, Egan, Ford, Halasima, Laban, Clark, and an interchange of Healy, Nakore, Vaimaunga, Stout Smith, with Iramia Taiava as 18th man, Cam Pereira in the number 20. So that's your 6-man bench. Reserves, Morgan Gannon, Luke Hanson comes back in, and Ali Leatawa, who I'm assuming will come back in should Adam Pompey be unsuccessful in his downgrade attempt.
Yeah, and I like I said, I heard Chance was at risk this week as well. Maybe that's been cleared. I don't know if anyone can tell me that that's resolved, but that we might need 2 centres to come in which case presumably that'll be Lecker, and then we'd be bringing Gannon into the team to cover that edge back row.
Yeah. Or Adamir Tava maybe too.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, he's due a run actually. Yeah.
Sort of seen too much of his cup form, but a favourite of mine. Yeah, so not quite the explosive teamless Tuesday that we might have been expecting with more injuries and a suspension, but potential changes later in the week. Have you caught up on the Pompey incident, Fonz? How do we look? Thought about his likelihood of getting off?
I to be honest, I probably wouldn't have challenged it.
No, I thought it was pretty cut and dried. You can see if you're watching on video there, he's and watching the footage, he raises his knee very late. Nakota was bracing for the tackle already, and he copped one in the face and had to go off with a facial injury. So just given what, accidental and unfortunate, but he has copped him, he has injured him. And we've seen these ones punished. Satili Tupanua a couple of years ago, 2 matches, Joseph Suali, 3 matches. And going back to Comrade Harrells, where he shattered Anthony Tupou's jaw, obviously much more high profile and sickening because of the injury, but similar action. And he got a 3-match ban. I think I would have copped the L on this one and just sat out a week, have take this trip off and hang out with your new bub, Adam Pompey. He's had a couple of ordinary performances in the losses, and I'm very surprised that they're contesting it, because I don't think they'll get off, but maybe they know more than I do about their chances.
Yeah, I don't want to analyse it any further, because all I'm doing is giving ammo to the prosecution team here. So let's leave it alone. I don't want to. I don't want to. Yeah, I don't have much to say about this. But the question is, All right, so can that team beat that Storm team? So let's have a look at that Storm team, because it's a hell of a team, man. I mean, they got 50 put on them by, one of that Penrith team. The way they're playing right now
Insane.
is
Yeah.
as good a team as has played in the last decade. I'd like the way they're playing at the moment is just absolute elite. So let's not get any false sense of security about the fact they got 50 put on them by that Penrith team. And it's a hell of a team. Look at it. I mean, look at the halves. Look at
Yeah, we'll run through in a second. Just it's probably not so much the heavy loss to Penrith that has me, worried about the Storm's form. It's losing to the Cowboys a week earlier, blowing a 14-point halftime lead against the Broncos a week before that. If they'd been winning and lost to the Panthers, I'd be thinking they're probably a lot more formidable, but maybe there is a bit more to this 3-match losing streak, and they don't lose 3 or more very often. I think it's only lost more than 3 twice in the Craig Bellamy era, 23 seasons. But yeah, I mean, look at them on paper, terrifying. Saw Falong at fullback, just run through it. Just absolutely piling up tries. Bit of a defensive liability. It'd be great if we could exploit that. Warbrick, our 2027 star signing, get a first-hand look at him. He's been up and down, but scoring tries too. Moses Leo comes back into the team as does Jack Howarth at centre. Nick Meaney stays at centre as well with Howarth. Munster and Hughes, terrifying. The forward pack of Tokamanu really stepped into that sort of anchor role in the pack there. Harry Grant, form hooker of the comp, Josh King, Joe Chan, who's been great. Cooper Clark recently re-signed, a lot of hype around him. So they have a few injuries in the forwards. Trent Liero, Queensland Origin rep at lock, and a pretty versatile interchange, Tyron Wishart, Alec McDonald, Jack Hetherington, the Warriors, brief Warriors recruit, 2020, Davey Miley, and Lazarus Valepo, Manaya Waitiri, rounding out that 6-man interchange. Still no sign of, I've forgotten the guy's name now, but they've still got a couple of injuries. So very strong lineup though. On paper, I mean, if this game was in round 4 and the way we've been playing, we would have been pretty bullish about our chances and about how we measure up on paper too. But these last 2 weeks have knocked our confidence a bit in that area. But it's a good time to get the Storm. Maybe they're on high alert because of the pressure of this losing streak. But I'd rather be playing a team that's playing like the Storm over the last 3 weeks than a team that's playing like the Panthers. So I think there's an opportunity here.
Yeah, look, I don't give us no chance. I'd love Barney to be in this game. I think if you put Barney into that pack, suddenly I reckon we might have the better pack, and then all of a sudden it's a question of can we exploit that better pack to get over the top of them. But yeah, I mean, so, we're assuming Pompey's probably out, so we're going to have a makeshift in there. And Ali, but he would be on Chan's side, right? And so, is Chan's going to go across and fill Pompey's side? How are we going to do that? So you're going to have a pretty busted up, more disruption, right? And Roger's not in form at the minute. Hopefully that comes back. Chanel's back. Hopefully he steps up and reignites Tanner. Look, it's and obviously we're playing away. It's not beyond us, I don't think, but it's I'll put Storm, $1.25, I reckon, something like that.
Yeah, well, let's have a quick look at the odds at the tab. What have we got here? We are, but shorter than that, Fonz. $1.36 with the Storm, 310 Warriors. Obviously the Storm's form hasn't helped that. 8.5 point start.
Okay.
It's that losing streak. I mean, 17 matches. It is the equal 6th longest rivalry losing streak of all time. We'll jump a couple of places with another defeat. 3 games longer than any rivalry losing streak in the NRL era. Last one in Melbourne in 2014. We've had some gallant losses, some very unlucky losses, and we've copped some hidings as well. Conceded 30 plus points in 8 of our 10 games at the venue since we last won there. And those losses that sort of refer to 2019 with a whole bunch of players out and dudded by Cameron Smith's skullduggery, and then the Xavier Coates last second try in 2024. Hopefully we can sort of replicate some of that form. But yeah, can we do it with a team that sort of seems to have shed all of its confidence over the last couple of weeks?
Look, I mean, it'd be our best win in 3 years or more. Well, since our prelim run, if we did win this, because of the history you just described and the way we're coming into it. So, I mean, it's one of these classic, no expectation, everything's upside if we get up. I do kind of feel like, though, we'll be just trying to keep our heads down, get through this game. And what is it, Titans a week after at home? That might be the idea. Let's reset there, regroup, go again from there. So my hopes are low, I've got to say, but that's the wise man. They can do it sometimes when you least expect it.
Yeah, I mean, that has been, we didn't have great hopes of knocking over the Roosters, and Raiders obviously seemed to flip of the coin. We went to the Newcastle with a few guys out and won all those games by a mile. Should have thought we were going to do the same. The Tigers got hammered, and pretty disappointing last week too. I'm going to use this as a bit of a platform for a gripe, Vons. So we're going to Melbourne, and it's the only time we played the Storm this year. Okay. So we're going to Melbourne. Last year we went to Melbourne in round 6, got a hiding. That was the only time we played the Storm.
Yep.
So made quite a big song dance about not having an Anzac Day game. Always go to Melbourne. I personally really liked the occasion and would have been quite happy to keep that game as the schedule, as our permanent Anzac Day schedule. But fair enough, great to have some Anzac Day games at home. Titans in 2024, Newcastle last year, Dolphins this year, hardly marquee fixtures. I think we sort of lose a little bit of the occasion, given such a great standing fixture. And it just annoys me, send the Storm over to play us on Anzac Day, or at least make them come here at some other stage of the season. We're in a worse position than we were because we're only playing the one game against Storm, still over there. This year and last year, only the one game against them, so they don't have to come over here. Looking back at the history of it, there's only about 2 seasons since 1998 that the Storm didn't come here, that we didn't play them twice. I don't think we've ever had to had a one fixture in Auckland season as well, in the rivalry as well. So it's very skewed. I don't think they've sort of acted like it's this big favour rejigging the Anzac Day schedule, but the Storm not coming here and regardless of the Anzac Day factor, is a bit shitty in my opinion.
But our overall draw this year's all right, isn't it?
Yeah, I think we do have a favourable one, and I guess you could say only playing the Storm once is an advantage, one of the heavyweights. But having to go there twice in a row when they don't come here
is
at all
annoying. I get that. Look, I mean, the NRL's not ever going to do our club any favours. I mean, let's just be clear about that. But I mean, I think what you're saying there about the history is because it was an Anzac Day fixture, so we were always going there. And we've had 2 years in a row since that got scotched where we have to go there. So I don't know, mate. I reckon let that one go. And I'm not sure we'd be winning this game home or away, if you know what I mean.
But rather have it at home.
100%. And comment there from I see you, Jerry.
I've been a bit slack on the bringing up the comments.
No,
Thank you to everyone watching everyone live.
We're reading them all. I think the 2 back from that, which is
Mimi and Leo. This one,
I think this is sort of putting it, talking about the backs haven't been that flash. But I think the key point here, though, is the Storm's weakness this year is their pack, I think. Like, their pack's not bad, but it's not elite. There's a couple of elite players in there, but there's also some fairly, mid-tier players in there. So if you can beat them in the forwards to the point that's on the screen there, their backs might be a bit out of sorts at the moment, which is, what we've seen over the last few weeks. So if you can beat them in the forwards and their backs stay out of sorts, you can jag a win against this team. And I think that's the hope for us.
And they have, obviously Pappenhausen and sort of leaving abruptly. Katoa was a massive loss from that pack. And then it's Atavalu Lasati still injured with a calf. On top of Xavier Coates' Achilles injury, he's not back to around 10. Like he, massive meters and obviously a very top tier finisher. So they have not had a lot of luck. And it's probably reflected in their 2 and 3 starts. So I think it is a good time to get them. It'd just be better if we were getting them and we were, rolling in with some better form on the board. But I'm excited. I love it's one of the ones that you circle on the calendar. I remember we were so pumped before this one last and for this one last year. I think we were coming in on a 3-match winning streak, and obviously didn't work out that way. I think we were 30-something down at halftime before sort of stemming the flow. But it's just one that I always get up for. Just has just that extra. I still think it's our best rivalry, and pretty pumped for it by the time kickoff rolls around, despite the late start.
Just a comment there from Anton McManus. That's not Anton Positive. We've got a few Antons on here. Yeah, interesting. Okay, I don't know if anyone else who's been about smart has observed that and can tell us. But it wouldn't surprise me at all if that's right. I think
just listening on the audio, Anton is saying there's a noticeable difference in the comms coming from Tane versus Chance at fullback. So interesting. Chance barking. Tane maybe, obviously inexperienced, not exactly a leader in the team, and it might not be in his wheelhouse.
Could just be personality. Or personality. Some guys are more naturally sort of talk. I mean, Chance is clearly a leader, in the squad. You can see it in media days and other things. Maybe Tane's just more quiet by nature. Okay.
Yeah. I'm excited for this one though, Fonz, and I think we can get the result. Yeah.
Well, we will see.
Any other? Just want to touch on. Obviously, we've kind of overlooked it because we were winning when he went down, and we won a couple of games extra. But Kurt Capewell's absence is that. I think that's sort of been a factor. He's someone that could sort of come in handy when he's fit. Just that extra senior player, particularly with Barnett going down again. Someone that could sort of improve what we're seeing out there the last couple of weeks.
Well, the timing, I think, is going to work out so that Capes is back around the time Metcalf's back. And I'm much happier Metcalf coming back in on that left edge if Capes is his bodyguard inside him. I think that could make a big difference to that edge. So hopefully those two things work out. Because, as much as we've had a pretty solid or pretty reasonable defensive team, at least through the middle section of the field for the last few years. So we've been trying to think about how do we make our attack better a lot of the time on this show and so on. But, it really does come home to me. You've got to pick your team first on who's going to make their tackles. And then having done that, you've got to think about who's going to help you score points, So I think Capes is an absolute game changer on the left edge when he's there. He can really shore up his outsides because he makes the right decision and he's a talker and a leader. And when he's not there, who have we had? We've had Lecker out there who is an absolute gun, but he's not an experienced player. He's a young player, and I don't think he's got his defensive reads down pat yet, So I think that's an important in when we get him back.
And on the other side of the ball, I don't think, Metcalf hasn't really been able to unlock Lecker. I mean, he's such a weapon. and we haven't really seen any sort of utilization of his unbelievable skill set. Again, in defence of Metcalf, and it's not something I'm sort of do a hell of a lot, but he has been chucked back on the opposite side of the ruck to where he was in such dominant form midway through last year. So he's adjusting to a different side of the field as well as a adjusted role, and they're taking a bit to get used to. But that halves puzzle, fascinating, particularly if Chanel comes back and plays that excellent secondary role that he can play and has an impact. Boyd rediscovers his rounds 1 to 3 form. It's
let's be honest. Metcalf hasn't been able to unlock anything, right? So far, right? Nothing.
Yeah.
So that's the truth. Yeah,
and not a giant, not that Boyd does, but not a huge body of work either behind Metcalf. Obviously had a great run of form last year, but that was essentially his first. It was the most games he'd played in a year in first grade. It was only 15. Slightly concerning again, another leg injury for Metcalf. He's he's 27 and just keeps on picking up those injuries. Not the kind of track record you want to pin your future on, and very intriguing with guys coming off contract in that halves department. So watch this space.
I just want to say I still believe that in my opinion, the highest ceiling spine in this team in 2026 is Chance at 1, Metcalf at 6, Boyd at 7, Egan at 9. I think that's the best spine. So the highest ceiling. The spine most likely to get us in the 8 is Chance, CHT, Boyd, Egan. That's the as a safe bet, but I don't think we're here to play safe. So don't get me wrong. I'm critical of Metcalf because he's done nothing and basically been a busted ass out there, if I'm honest. Yeah. But he is still a member of the spine that gives us the highest ceiling in this comp. And if we want to win the comp, I think he's got to be there. So when he's back, he's got to come in, and we just got to work out what we do around that. But if he's, and I'm not saying he is, I don't know, but if he's sooking in any way, right, about not being the 7, dump his ass to reserve grade and tell him to piss off, because we don't have time for that, in this club. Yeah.
Wouldn't tell him to go and dominate there and prove that he's the best 7. Yeah. There was a little bit of and again, he's come back from a very difficult injury to return from in an unfamiliar role, but there was a lot of the getting the ball, taking off on a bit of a cross field diagonal run, running himself into a cul-de-sac, and then jagging back, and it just offers nothing. If you're going to run straight. He's so fast. He's got great footwork. Take the line on. You may as well just shovel the ball along if that's what you're going to do. He's just getting rounded up very easily, and was pretty ugly to watch against the Sharks. Pretty frustrating, particularly if you're not going to do much digging into the line and ball playing like Chanel and Boyd are very good at doing on both sides. So, but he'll have a few weeks to think about that by the looks of things, and looking forward to seeing Chanel back on deck. Fonz, we've got our PlaceMakers Warriors legend profile. And I've gone, it's more of a topical one, and certainly not one of the Warriors greats, but bear with me. I've chosen one season Warrior, Kieran Foran, in the wake of his triumphant interim coaching debut for Manly. Geez, what a great story that was. I mean, it seemed like he was on a hiding to nothing. It's less than 7 months earlier that he played his last NRL game, thrown in the hot seat with Manly in shambles, and his team wins 52-18. It was great to watch. Everyone loves Foz. Great Kiwi. Came to the Warriors in 2017 on the back of a disastrous stint at Parramatta. He obviously had a season-ending injury. He was the captain and marquee signing, released by the club mid-season amid some personal turmoil, lobbed at the Warriors with his ex-Kiwis coach Stephen Kearney, gave us the whole Kiwi spine with Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, Sean Johnson, Isaac Luke, which was very exciting. But yeah, just a tough one. I think he played 17 games, started late, was injured, and I think he played hurt most of the year. Such a gutsy competitor. He actually contributed pretty well to a couple of wins early on after he returned, but yeah, couldn't keep that spine on the park. Sean Johnson missed a lot of footy as well. Foz missed a fair few games as well, and I would have loved to see Foran stick around, but he went over to the Bulldogs, then back to Manly and finished on the Gold Coast. But certainly modern great, and yeah, awesome to see him, past 300 NRL games, recalls to the Kiwis, part of that 2023 Pacific Championship victory for the Kiwis, and yeah, just such a great ambassador for New Zealand Rugby League, and now into the coaching space. Obviously only a one-season Warrior, but he's one that I look back on, and I like that he pulled on the jersey, albeit for 1 year and a tough year for the club, and it never really sort of hit his peak form. But yeah, good on you, Kieran Foran. Congratulations on that win. Just before I dig into a bit more history to do with Foran's interim coaching debut, Fonz, thoughts on Kieran? Any memories from that 2017 stint?
Oh, mate, I thought that year when Kieran came, I thought he was going to get his head together and we were going to go on a run. I thought we were going to have a really good year that year, and it didn't come through. So that, jaded me a bit, and then he left, and so I left a bit of sour taste in my mouth, to be honest. I remember going on a long walk up on Sydney's northern beaches and running into Kieran walking his two dogs through a park in, I think it was Forestville or something up there where he was living in the Manly area. And I noticed who he was, and I just sort of gave him a bit of a heads up. And he was, just a real down-to-earth dude walking barefoot through the park with a couple of dogs running around. No doubt he's a real top bloke. But I can't get too excited about his contribution to our club, but I am very appreciative of his contribution to New Zealand Rugby League, including coming in at the back end of his career when his body was pretty broken and putting in some fantastic performances for the Kiwis. Yeah.
To see us out in honour of that interim coach, probably the greatest interim coaching debut in history, I reckon. Just based on the result and the where the base that he had to work with. Geez, they were in trouble. Round 4, it was diabolical, but what a win. I'm looking at every interim coach for the Warriors and their first win, so I'm just going to run through them quickly. We're getting towards the end of the hour, but the first, we've had way too many interim coaches, by the way. Frank Endicott came in at round 10 of 1997, the Warriors' third season, the Super League season. And he did get a bit of a quick turnaround, not the result, but lost 34-18 to Brisbane after leading 12-10 at halftime. Didn't have Matthew Ridge on deck, and it sort of laid the platform for that World Club Challenge charge under Frankie, and a bit of a late season spike that saw us avoid the wooden spoon. Had to go through to 2004 for the next one. This is the standard bearer of Warriors interim coaching debuts, Tony Kemp, round 13 against the Raiders after Daniel Anderson did the bolt. And an amazing 20-14 win over the Raiders. Heroic. They brought in, it was very emotional when they brought in a bunch of family members and stuff to G up the team, and bit of a not much of a bounce on the back of that one, and he won 2 of their remaining 12 and narrowly avoided the spoon. Tony Ero, round 20, he took over for the last 2 rounds of 2012 when Blue McLennan, his first season, came to an abrupt halt, and 38-6 loss to the Dragons at Wynn Stadium. It was only 12-6 at halftime, but a disappointing into that season. Sean Johnson got their only try, but was dropped, and Maloney was dumped to the bench for his last game for the club. And a Feleti Mateo, Peter Godinay combo lost to the Raiders in the last round pretty heavily. So that was Tony Edo's 2-game stint as interim head coach. Andrew McFadden, this was a good one. Round 6 against the Bulldogs, a heartbreaker, 21-20 loss at Eden Park. Led 2018 late, 4 tries to 3, and then controversial Trent Hodkinson penalty goal and a field goal pipped us at the end there. Todd Payton, the controversial sacking of Stephen Kearney amid the COVID crisis, and Payton came in for round 7. We lost 50-6 to the Storm at Cogra, horrific. And Stacey Jones's was not much better in picking up the pieces from Nathan Brown in 2022. Lost 38-16 to the Sharks at Redcliffe, and pretty tough little stint there for Stacey. Difficult circumstances. Andrew Webster did have an interim coach stint. Many forget this, but when Jason Taylor got sacked at the Tigers in early 2017, Andrew Webster came in for 2 games before Ivan Cleary jumped on board. And they blew a 14-0 lead against the Storm, went down 26-14, but some early signs of Andrew Webster's coaching class, and quite fortuitous, really, because Ivan Cleary turning up there, they both went to Penrith together, and that's, kind of how we ended up with this coaching phenom in Andrew Webster at our club. So, that's all I got, Fons. You still there?
There, mate. Yeah, fantastic. And there's a question: has an interim coach ever gone to make finals? I'm sure they have. Yeah,
a couple of the most famous examples. Jason Taylor. So the Eels were in all sorts. And Brian Smith bailed early. Jason Taylor took over, I think it was sort of round about the halfway mark of the season, and they scraped into the 8 with some very good form. Jason Taylor got the South Sydney job on the back of that. Eels had already signed Michael Hagan for 2007. Couple of others, but not quite as impressive. Brian Smith again bailed very late in the season on Newcastle, and Rick Stone came in and saw them through to the finals, but there was only sort of 3 games to get there. And the shock sacking of Anthony Griffin at Penrith in 2016, I believe. Cameron Ciraldo came in, 2018, and Cameron Ciraldo came in and steered the Panthers to the finals in the last 6 rounds, but they were already kind of on track. So, probably Jason Taylor's the only one that you could really say turned a club around and took a team there. Maybe Foz can do it. That'd be a pretty amazing achievement.
I reckon it'd be a bit more like Freddie Fittler at the Roosters. I think Freddie came in, and has all the right vibe. Has all the right vibe around the team, but doesn't quite have the X's and O's to get him there in his first year, I think.
But it'd be nice to see a little bounce. It's suddenly a reason to kind of like Manly again, and good luck to him. Fons, have taken up a good chunk of your time. You got anything else to add before we?
I do just want to. Vaughan on there has a question. I do just want to answer it because it's a good question, and always want to answer good questions like that. So, how can I say pick the team first on defence, which I did before, but then say Boyd Metcalf is the highest upside? So, it's a good question because it's obviously the case that CHT is the best defensive half we've got, right? So, it would follow that if you're saying pick your team first on defence, you'd have him in your team. I think as Webby's put it before, like defence and offence aren't separate things. Your defence and offence work into each other. So if you're offensively on the front foot, you tend to be defensively on the front foot and vice versa. So it's like a loop rather than it's not like NFL where you've got an offensive team and a defensive team. So you've got to look at the contribution both sides of the ball and see how it is. So I probably should say rather than you want to pick your best defensive team, you've got to pick a team that will make its tackles, right? And so if you can get to a point where you're confident Boyd and Metcalf can make their tackles, especially if Metcalf has, for example, let's say he's playing left side, so he's got Capewell and a clued in Pompey inside and outside him, and between the two, they can, work with him so that he makes his tackles. Then I think what he's bringing on the attacking side of the ball if you can get him to run the right shapes and channels, is just the highest upside. That's what I mean by that. I think Chanel, but when I said that Chanel, Boyd, is the team that's most certainly going to get you to the top 8, it's because I know Chanel's going to make his tackles and he doesn't need babysitters on the inside, and he's going to do enough in attack to get you there. But Metcalf, I think, is clear can do more in attack. So if you can get him to make his tackles and not have him leak, I think that's why he's got the upside. But it's a good question, man, because this is a close thing. It's a close thing. Yeah.
Yeah, very close. I'm going to drop in one last stat that I forgot. We're talking about the penalties and 10-1 penalty count. Like, you don't see that lopsided of a penalty count very often. I'm sure the Sharks would have been up in arms had they lost the game and with the same penalty count. But with the least penalised team in the competition, NRL, though, 3.0 penalties per game. Penrith second with 3.8. But even more striking for me, and I put this in the stats piece for page subscribers today, but how the opposition to the Warriors have fared in penalty counts. So the teams that have played against us have conceded on average 9.2 penalties a game, but the team with the worst average from from all of their games is the Broncos at 7.0 penalties a game. So our opponents are conceding 2.2 penalties more on average than the worst penalised team in the comp, who we haven't even played the Broncos. So, quite extraordinary, really. It's not really translating the last couple of weeks. Certainly seemed to first 3, but see how that trend continues.
Well, the interesting thing is, and like I said, I didn't watch this week close enough because I was watching on the phone and all that, but I said a few weeks ago, I'm worried at some point the refs are going to start reffing the ruck differently, and the headwind we're getting there could reverse. I'm wondering if that's starting to happen. So let's keep an eye on that this week too.
Yeah, very interesting. And Storm pretty adept at probably taking advantage of it too with their wily hooker and halves. But Fonz, let's sign off. You probably got a bit of work to finish off the day. I've got dinner on the go. And,
sounds good.
Yeah. Thanks to Kingz Container Crew, of course, PlaceMakers, everyone that's tuned in and dropped in comments. Sorry we didn't get to all your questions, but very much appreciate you tuning in. Our paid subscribers on Substack, particularly our founding members, and just everyone out there having a listen now or later. But yeah, take it easy, Fonz. Everyone else out there, until next time, look after yourselves and each other.